You opened your phone last night. Your college roommate, the one who used to fall asleep in econ, just got promoted to VP. And you saw it because LinkedIn decided that was important information for you at 11 p.m. on a weeknight. Your friend from your first job posted photos from a family trip to Portugal, and somehow their kids are in matching outfits. Like, they have the kind of life where coordinating children's clothing is something they have energy for. Meanwhile, you're here on a Tuesday, watching a YouTube video about why you feel behind. And look, I used to think that feeling meant something was wrong with me. Like everyone else got some memo about how to win at life, and I just wasn't on the email chain. Turns out, that feeling isn't a flaw. It's a glitch in the math, in how every social network on Earth actually works. And no one, like literally no one, ever explained it to you. Stop comparing yourself to others. It's their highlight reel, not their real life. Just be grateful for what you have. You've heard all of it, and it doesn't work. You know why? My personal favorite? They're only showing their highlight reel. Cool. So I should feel better knowing their real life is also mediocre? That's not a fix. That's a cope. All that advice assumes the problem is in your head, that you're thinking wrong, that if you just journal harder or, I don't know, meditate more aggressively, you'll stop caring that everyone around you seems to be lapping you. But what if the problem isn't psychological? What if it's mathematical? What if the very way humans form friendships basically guarantees, and I mean that literally, not internet literally, that you will always feel like you're falling behind? What if a sociologist proved this in 1991 and almost nobody noticed? I should be honest with you. I didn't start researching this for a video. I started because I needed to understand why I couldn't stop doing this to myself. Why I'd open LinkedIn, where everyone is thrilled to announce something, and feel this weight settle in my chest. Like I was running the same race as everyone I know, just further back, with worse shoes. There was this one night, 2 a.m., couldn't sleep, and I'm scrolling through someone's post about their 401k hitting some milestone. And I remember thinking, when did personal finance become a spectator sport? So I went looking for the actual science, not the motivational poster version, the published, peer-reviewed, mathematically proven version. And what I found didn't fix the feeling, but it changed what the feeling means. In 1991, a sociologist named Scott Feld published a paper with maybe the most depressing title in all of academia. It was called, and I'm not making this up, Why Your Friends Have More Friends Than You Do. And he proved it. Not with surveys, not with vibes, with actual math. Here's the simplest version. Bear with me for a second because this is worth it. 6 people. One of them is the connector, friends with everyone. The rest have like 1 or 2 connections each. Now you ask every person in that group, do your friends have more friends than you? 5 out of 6 say yes. And here's why that happens. The popular person shows up in everybody's friend list. They inflate the average for everyone around them. It's not that you're unpopular. It's that the math, the actual arithmetic, is weighted against you. Okay, cool. Party trick. But then someone tested it at scale. In 2012, researchers analyzed the entire Facebook platform. Not a sample, the whole thing. 721 million users, 69 billion friendships. And the glitch held for 93% of them. The average user had 190 friends. Their friends averaged 635. That's not a small gap. Your friends appear to have 234% more connections than you do. Your entire baseline for what's normal socially, what a regular person's life looks like, is inflated by more than double. And here's something that came out recently that makes this worse. On platforms like Twitter and Instagram, where following isn't mutual, the distortion is even stronger. The people you choose to follow are an even more skewed sample than your actual friends. You're not just seeing a biased average, you're seeing the highlight reel of a biased average. You've been measuring yourself against a broken ruler your whole life. Here's a question. Why is your gym always packed? Like, you go, it's crowded. Every time. But the gym swears their average occupancy is low. Who's lying? Nobody. And the reason nobody's lying is the same reason your friends seem more successful than you. Stay with me. More people experience the crowded hours because more people are there during the crowded hours. When the gym is empty, no one's there to notice it's empty. Your sample is biased. Same thing with your college classes. Your school advertised an average class size of 30, but every class you sat in felt like 90. That's because bigger classes have more students in them. So when you ask students what they experience, they massively oversample the huge lectures. Even the bus, right? You ever feel like every bus you wait for takes forever? You're not unlucky. You're statistically more likely to show up during a longer gap, because longer gaps take up more time on the clock. And here's a version of this that, honestly, this one might change how you see your Instagram feed. Researchers call it the majority illusion. In certain network structures, and social media is exactly this kind of structure, a behavior that only 10% of people actually do can appear to be the majority in most people's local view. That's why it feels like everyone you know is buying a house, or having a baby, or getting promoted, all at the same time. They're not, but the network makes it look that way. Same math every time. You're not failing. Your sample of reality is warped. And here's the thing. Nobody teaches you this. Okay, so that's friends and connections. But here's where it stops being an interesting math problem and starts being personal. In 2014, two researchers published a paper in Nature that should have been front-page news. They asked, does this glitch apply to things beyond friend counts? They looked at networks of scientists, who collaborates with whom, and they found your co-authors don't just have more co-authors than you, they also have more publications, more citations, more recognition. It ripples outward. Any trait that correlates with being well-connected gets inflated in your perception. Income correlates with connections. Career success correlates. Even how attractive people seem correlates. So the things you compare yourself on most, money, job title, how put together someone's life looks, those are exactly the things that are most distorted in your social circle. And, okay, This one I genuinely couldn't believe when I read it. A study from 2023 looked at hostile relationships, not friendships, enemies. And your enemies also have more enemies than you do. Even the people who dislike you have a more active social life of disliking people. The math doesn't let you win at anything. It's like someone designed a system that specifically targets your insecurities. Except it's not someone. It's just arithmetic. And now we get to the part that genuinely scared me. In 2017, a researcher at Indiana University named Johan Bolin analyzed 39,000 Twitter users and asked the next obvious question. Are your friends also happier than you? 94% of those users were less connected than their friends. Expected. That's the glitch doing its thing. But 58% were also measurably less happy than their friends. On average, across thousands of tweets analyzed for emotional tone. Here's what I had to read 3 times before it sank in. The people who were already struggling, the ones who were already less happy, they experienced the strongest version of this effect. Not the weakest, the strongest. If you're having a hard time, the people around you, who are also having a hard time, still seem like they're doing better than you. It's a feedback loop. The worse you feel, the more distorted your lens gets. The more distorted your lens, the worse you feel. It feeds itself. And look, social media didn't invent this. Your grandparents felt it when the neighbors pulled up in a new Buick. But your grandparents had to keep up with, 6 families on their block? Maybe 10 if they were social. You're keeping up with 800 curated profiles that update every 45 minutes. Same feeling, completely different scale. So the math is rigged. We've established that. But there's a human layer on top of the math, and it makes everything worse. In 1959, a sociologist named Irving Goffman made an argument that, honestly, once you hear it, you start seeing it everywhere. He said every human interaction is basically theater. We all have a front stage, the curated version, and a backstage, who we actually are when nobody's looking. Social media didn't invent performing. It just made the stage permanent. Your front stage used to be, a dinner party. Now it's a 24/7 broadcast that an algorithm optimizes for maximum impressiveness. So here's the full picture, and I'll warn you, once you see this, you can't unsee it. First filter. The network glitch gives you a biased sample. You disproportionately see the most connected, most visible people around you. Second filter. Those people are also performing. An optimized version of themselves. You're not comparing your life to their life. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel of a mathematically skewed sample. And here's why willpower can't fix it. A psychologist named Leon Festinger proved in 1954 that comparison isn't a choice. It's a reflex. It evolved to help us navigate small groups, maybe 50, maybe 150 people, where checking how you stack up gave you genuinely useful information. That number, 150, it's not a rough guess. Robin Dunbar predicted it from primate brain sizes, and it's been confirmed in 23 separate studies. Phone networks, Facebook groups, military units, medieval English villages from the Doomsday Book. Your brain is physically built for groups of about 150. But your tribe now is 1,000 curated profiles. You're running village software on a city-sized network, and the software doesn't have an update available. Okay, but before you feel too sorry for yourself, and believe me, I was deep in the self-pity when I first read all this, there's something uncomfortable we should probably talk about. You're not just experiencing this distortion, you're in it. Someone you haven't thought about in months saw something you posted last week. You don't even remember posting it, and felt that exact same stomach drop you felt about your college roommate's VP promotion. Not because you were showing off. You weren't thinking about it. You were just living your life publicly. That's what makes this so hard to fix. It doesn't need a villain. It just needs people to have lives and other people to see them. And here's a detail that got under my skin. A sociologist named Runciman showed that this feeling hurts most when it comes from people at your level. Not celebrities, not billionaires, the people who were in your freshman dorm, your first manager's other direct reports, the people in your Slack workspace. That's why your friend's promotion stings more than some strangers, because the gap feels closable. And that might be the cruelest part of all of this. So, what do you actually do with all of this? I'm not going to tell you to stop comparing. A psychologist from the 1950s already proved you can't. And I'm not going to tell you to delete your apps. That's treating a symptom. Instead, I want to give you 3 questions, a filter you can run every time that feeling hits. 1. Am I looking at a representative sample? The math guarantees you're not. The people in your feed are there because they're visible. You're not behind. You're looking at a skewed distribution and mistaking it for the average. 2. Am I seeing their rehearsed version or their real one? The 3 a.m. anxiety, the imposter syndrome at their desk, the self-doubt, that's backstage. You never get a ticket to that show. 3. Would I feel this way in a group of 150 people? If my circle were the size evolution designed my brain for, would I still feel behind? Almost certainly not. That pit in your stomach, 3 a.m., everyone's ahead of me feeling, it's not information about your life. It's a sampling error. A known bug in an operating system you didn't choose, can't uninstall, and share with every other human who ever lived. Knowing about the bug doesn't make it go away, but it takes away its authority. The feeling goes from being a verdict on your life to a known error in the system. And knowing the error exists, that's the first real advantage you've ever had over it. So next time you're scrolling at 3 a.m. and that feeling hits, remember, you're looking through a warped lens. Everyone is, including the people you're looking at. That's the thing about this glitch. Knowing about it doesn't make you immune, but it makes you the first person at the party who noticed the mirror was bent. And, yeah, that's worth something. Now, everything I just told you explains why your friends seem more successful. But there's a follow-up question that's even more uncomfortable. What if the way networks grow actually creates real inequality, where being slightly more connected early on compounds into a massive gap over time? There's a name for it. It's called the Matthew effect. And it is even more deep than what I just told you. That's next week. If you got something out of this, subscribing helps me keep doing this well.